Cahirle and Gourmagad as Octon Chance Lorch Livenu, son and Avery and the Tabakta. It's nice and quiet here on a Thursday, and I'm valuing that quietness because it's a good place to be to think properly and obviously listen to the individual contributions. So I'd like to thank you for that. I also welcome the opportunity to address the House on the Joint Committee on Education and Skills Report on training and supports for providers of special education, special needs education and education in JESH schools. And in particular, I'd like to thank all the committee members for their input, and to the chairperson, Fiona Loughlin, for her deliberations and report on this matter. And I know you raised a number of points there as well this evening, Deputy, and I know you've given us information on the autistic provision in County Laois, so I'm happy to follow up on that. And I just want to join with you in acknowledging the witnesses who presented at committee for their invaluable contributions, because we're in such an evolving space at the moment with special education, especially when you look at the trajectory of funding from 2011. That is that in itself is a signature that there has been change, and there's going to be more change as well, and we need to be in a position to adapt to that. The topic is very significant and worthy of the full consideration of this House. The matter at its core relates to our most vulnerable children and young people with special educational needs and those who are educationally disadvantaged. The committee identified the topic of training and supports for providers of special needs education and education in JESH schools as one of its priorities, and undertook a consultation process with a broad range of education stakeholders. And a key component of the committee's report recognises two very important areas: the need for greater inclusion and diversity within the educational system for all children based on their individual strengths. And the committee made 8 recommendations, as we pointed out: the full implementation of the ESPN Act, compulsory training for all school staff, standardisation of nursing and clinical supports throughout the education system, and that an update on the implementation of the 5 goals identified in the JESH Plan 2017 be provided to the committee. Also, ensuring that children with special educational needs are supported and given the opportunity to reach their full potential is a key priority for this government. The basic aim of this government is to use our economic success to build a fairer and more compassionate society. Equality of opportunity is at the heart of our vision. Notwithstanding the fact that not all of the sections of the EPSN Act has been commenced, a number of very significant developments have taken place in recent years in relation to the provision of supports for children with special educational needs in schools. This includes very significant levels of additional investment combined with a number of reforming measures. My department continues to seek to improve provisions by implementing NCSE policy advice recommendations, including the policy advice on supporting students with special educational needs in schools published in 2013, and also by seeking to bring into effect many of the good ideas contained in the EPSN Act on a non-statutory basis, initially through policy developments across a range of areas. During the worst years of recession, when public spending was cut across the board, we not only protected supports to children with special educational needs, we increased them. In 2018, my department invested over €1.75 billion in this area, 1/5 of my department's overall budget, and up 42% since 2011, at which point €1.24 billion was invested. This additional investment has provided for an increase of 38% in the number of special education teachers allocated to schools, which went from 9,630 in 2011 to almost 13,300 at present. 137% in the number of special classes, from 548 in 2011 to 1,304 at present, and a 42% increase in the number of SNAs which were available in 2011, with over 15,000 SNAs working in our schools at the end of 2018, which will come close to 16,000 this year. And a range of other supports are also provided for children with special educational needs, such as special school transport arrangements, assistive technology supports and additional teachers in special schools. My department is committed to a number of measures across the sector to ensure training and upskilling teachers and other professionals working with students. And also, just to point out, it was raised by one of the deputies that we will continue to look at all avenues of training, and certainly won't just be looking at the traditional routes. There's a lot of people working with children in the whole school environment. A lot of very good people who continue to do the important work of looking after young people and also acting as guardians and as custodians for them. So we need to ensure that they get the equality access to training as well. The Department is committed to a number of measures across the sector to ensure we bring, and the NCSE strives to bring about improved educational outcomes for students with special educational needs by developing schools and teachers' capacity to provide a relevant and meaningful school experience for students through a multi-tiered continuum of support which is inclusive and responsive. This is achieved by providing supports to schools, advice to educators, parents and guardians, by undertaking and disseminating research into special education, and by providing policy advice to the Minister of the Day on special education issues. The NCSE aims to support the professional development needs of teachers in schools in relation to the teaching of children with special needs in as flexible a way as possible. The establishment of one NCSE support service, incorporating a special education support service, national behaviour support service and visiting teacher service with the special education needs organiser, the SENO service, provides a more integrated and coherent support structure to support schools, parents and students. The NCSE provides a range of supports to parents, teachers and students in the area of special educational needs. This includes continuing professional development for teachers, which includes school-based seminars, NCSE designed and delivered seminars, NCSE supported courses, online courses, e-learning and book borrowing schemes. The NCSE support service also provides support for schools, groups and individual teachers, including school visits, phone support and email support. CBD courses are also available through Middletown Centre for Autism, while college and university courses are provided at postgraduate levels, such as applied behavioural analysis, deaf, hard of hearing and visual impairment. In 2017, in all areas of special educational need, the NCSE delivered 7,211 courses or events in continuous professional development. Over 15,000 participants, school management and teachers received CPT outside of school, and over 22,000 participants received in-school support, visits and presentation. The concept of co-teaching, or team teaching as it is also known, is already in evidence in the Department's policies and supports for inclusive education, and there is experience of this both in special educational needs and GESH. Team teaching encompasses a range of models which have to be used in a way that is appropriate and meaningful to the individual school context and acknowledges the role of the teachers and students involved. The Professional Development Service for Teachers provides CPD support to teachers on an ongoing basis for team teaching, and it also has had involvement with student-teacher projects in this area. Section 39 of the Teaching Council Act 2001-2015 provides for the Council to review and accredit programmes providing continuing training and professional development for teachers. In the Education Act 2012, Section 39 was amended to enable the Council to regulate the conditions for renewal of teacher registration, including attendance at programmes of continuing education and training, and these amendments have yet to be commenced. Under Section 38 of the Teaching Council Act, all initial teacher education programmes have been reviewed and accredited by the Teaching Council for registration purposes. The criteria and guidelines for programme providers, published in 2011 and revised in March 2017, is an important document that must be observed by all providers of initial teacher education in order that their programmes are recognised for the purposes of registration. Inclusive education is a mandatory area of study for all student teachers who are undertaking programmes of initial teacher education at primary and post-primary in accordance with the criteria and guidelines. The graduate teacher is required to demonstrate knowledge and understanding of the factors that promote and hinder learning, the impact of pupils' backgrounds on learning, and the need to provide for the holistic development of the learner, particularly through differentiated approaches. It is widely accepted that the issue of training and sports is much broader than teacher education. Students can benefit when all staff in schools and people whom they interact with have been trained in whole school approaches to inclusion. The comprehensive review of Special Needs Assistance Scheme, which set out to ensure that the scheme is achieving the best outcomes possible for children with special educational needs, recommends the development of a national training programme tailored to the needs of school communities, which will include training for special needs assistants to ensure that school staffs have the requisite skills to meet the need of students' care needs arising from significant medical, physical, emotional, behavioural, sensory and other significant difficulties when engaging with with learning. The full report of the SNA Comprehensive Review also contains a recommendation in relation to the provision of nursing and clinical supports, which was informed by the report from the Working Group on Nursing Supports for Students with Complex Medical Needs. The Department of Health and my department are tasked with agreeing and delivering the health and education supports that are required to meet the very complex needs of students in special schools and classes. And in response to the comprehensive review of the SNA scheme, I have undertaken to develop proposals for the implementation of the NCSE's recommendations, and I will be bringing to Government shortly a proposed implementation plan for the policy recommendations of the NCSE report for approval. And I would like to acknowledge the group I met recently in the last 2 weeks, the Connacht Ulster branch of SNAs, who were raising this issue and asking when we would be advancing that. So I'm glad to say that we will be doing that as a priority very shortly. The issue of complex behavioural needs was also examined as part of the comprehensive SNA review. The Department is currently working on the development of guidelines for schools on the specific issues of the use of restraint intervention. Before finalising this work, the Department will consult with stakeholders. Training will also be considered as part of this work. With regard to the recommendations in the committee report relating to issues affecting schools raised in the course of the committee's consultations with stakeholders, I have recently requested the NCSE to undertake develop advice on the educational provision that should be in place for students educated in special schools and classes, and to make recommendations on the provisions required to enable students in special schools and classes to achieve better outcomes. The advice will also look at international approaches. The NCSE have been asked to complete and submit its report to the Minister not later than June 2020. This Government has been able to continue to meet the needs of children with special educational needs attending our schools and to increase provision to address emerging needs in this area. The Government will continue to prioritise investment in the area of special education support. I wish to assure the House that the education of children with special educational needs remains a key priority. In relation to DEIS, inclusive education is a fundamental principle of our education and training system. It is vital that all learners have the opportunity to benefit from education in order to help them fulfil their potential in life. DEIS, delivering equality of opportunity in schools, is my department's main policy initiative aimed at tackling educational disadvantage in primary and post-primary schools. DEIS Plan 2017, launched by my department in February 2017, contains 5 key goals and 108 actions to achieve these goals. In line with the recommendations of the report, my department has recently submitted an update to the committee on the implementation of DEIS Plan 2017. There are now 896 schools participating in the DEIS programme, with my department investing over £125 million last year in the range of additional support to DEIS schools, such as DEIS grants and enhanced DEIS book grants. Additional funding of some €81 million in 2018 was provided by the Government for the Schools Meals Programme and the School Completion Programme, and I know historically, a number of years ago, Deputy Borton, yourself, you were keen to ensure that this particular aspect of funding was protected. I would like to acknowledge that. The current level of funding provided to DEIS schools highlights the Government's commitment to ensuring education becomes a proven pathway to better opportunities for all learners, especially those at risk of not maximising the benefits of education. DEIS schools receive financial resources in the form of a DEIS grant as well as an enhanced book grant. They also have access to literacy and numeracy support, priority access to professional development and the Centre for School Leadership, enhanced guidance, allocation, access to Incredible Years and Friends programme, access to School Meals programme and Homeschool Community Liaison Scheme and School Completion programme. My department has introduced an objective, statistics-based model for assessing which schools merit inclusion in the DEIS programme, so that all stakeholders can have confidence that we are targeting extra resources at those schools with the highest levels of concentrated disadvantage. The rationale for allocating resources and supports based on a school's level of concentrated disadvantage is based on the existence of a multiplier effect, whereby students attending a school with a concentration of students from disadvantaged backgrounds have poor academic outcomes. Research by the Educational Research Centre and Economic and Social Research Institute indicates a strong evidence based in the Irish context that the social mix of a school matters, providing a rationale for prioritising supports for schools which cater for those from lower socio-economic backgrounds. Students in schools with higher concentrations of peers from socio-economic background have lower achievement levels than those in schools with a more socially advantaged intake, all other factors being equal. There is strong evidence of such an effect in GESH post-primary schools and in urban GESH primary schools, especially Band 1 schools. Indeed, the latest report published by the ERC on the 7th of January last on the evaluation of GESH at post-primary level shows significant positive trends in achievement at junior certificate level. However, more work needs to be done, as indicated in last week's ESRI report on the impact of the revised Leaving Cert grading system. At the heart of the GESH initiative is the requirement and opportunity for schools to determine their own needs, set their own targets and use resources as think best to target those students most at risk of educational disadvantage. The new GESH identification model, and I'm listening closely what the deputies have had to say this evening in relation to looking at a targeted approach to ensure that we have the highest impact and obviously get the support service around the people in most need. The new GESH identification model will have an impact not only on the assessment of schools for inclusion in the programme, but also on the scaling of resources to allow for more graduated levels of support. This in turn will allow for the ultimate objective of allocating resources to best meet the identified need of individual schools. I'd just like to conclude, Cathaoirleach, by thanking the committee once again for their contribution and observation. And from my meetings and touring about the place and meeting different schools and going to the special schools and meeting our leaders within the school system, there's always room to do more, there's always room to do better, there's always the weaknesses, but there's also the strengths, and we have to ensure that we continue to engage with the stakeholders. So the committee's work that you're doing, reaching out to the people that know, that matter, and have the experience and have the knowledge, that is really, really important, and I would like to thank you for that. And my concluding remark is this: there has been an enormous influx of representations coming from my colleagues around the House in relation to pressures coming on for additional support for autistic young people. And in the language that you talked about as well, Deputy Burton, and I raised it this week already, we have to reach out as well to the language that we use with regard, and I'm not going to use the word that you mentioned there, but we have to figure a better way of channeling our vocabulary around that, and we can't create stigma and alienation within the school environment. So for autism spectrum, the classes that are needed, there's pressures coming on. The representations are coming in, and it's not just the Greater Dublin area and Cathaoirleach into your own neighbouring county of Kildare or Meath or Wicklow or Louth. It's around the country. I'm conscious what Deputy Funchion is saying as well in relation to her own constituency. There is a complex process of consultation needed. The onus is, as you pointed out, Deputy, the onus is on the parents to find a place. There can be complications with that as well. And if there's better ways of providing information flows, and whether it's informing or training up boards of management or giving schools more of a focus or more of a roadmap in terms of how we can help this process, because it's difficult enough for a parent who has a child with special needs without having to go through the harsh reality as well of fighting for a place. So there's a big demand coming down the line, but we have to figure out a way, and I know at the top of my, within the Department of Education, especially in the whole area of special needs, there's a deep consciousness that the inclusion model is working. Yes, there is a need for the special classes, but also there is the choice element around mainstream. But there's a deep consciousness in the officials that I'm working with within the department that we continue to prioritise that. There's a change in legislation which came into effect last December as well in terms of my own role when it comes to special classes. So it's something that we will monitor very closely as well. Oireachtas Cathaoirleach, go raibh míle maith agus Gormaigh ag an costéir.